Today we're looking at chapters 6 and 7 from volume 2 of Great Expectations. In chapter 6, we experience the other side of Wemmick. I had mentioned that the, harsh, stern Wemmick that we've met thus far, that he has another side. And we learn about that when he takes Pip to Walworth, where he lives with his aged parent. That's what he calls his parent, the aged parent. So not only does he have his portable property, I always want to say portable potty, but he also has his aged parent and these expressions that are very amusing. I want to describe for you a little bit about his place. It is so crazy funny. Okay, so just looking on page 188, they get to Walworth where his place is. It says at the very bottom, it appeared to be a collection of back lanes, ditches, and little gardens, and to present the aspect of a rather dull retirement. Wemmick's house was a little wooden cottage in the midst of plots of garden, and the top of it was cut out and painted like a battery mounted with guns. I mentioned at the beginning of the novel that a battery refers to this sort of armory where they would have stored ammunition, maybe cannons and so on. Guns, obviously. My own doing, said Wemmick. Looks pretty, don't it? I highly commended it. I think it was the smallest house I ever saw, with the queerest Gothic windows, by far the greater part of them sham, and a Gothic door almost too small to get in at. That's a real flagstaff, you see, said Wemmick, and on Sundays I run up a real flag. Then look here, after I've crossed this bridge, I hoist it up so and cut off the communication. The bridge was a plank, and it crossed a chasm about 4 feet wide and 2 deep, but it was very pleasant to see the pride with which he hoisted it up and made it fast, smiling as he did so with a relish, and not merely mechanically. At 9 o'clock every night, Greenwich time, said Wemmick, the gun fires. There he is, you see, and when you hear him go, I think you'll say he's a stinger. Okay, so then he describes this what do you call it, cannon, like a cannon, I guess you'd say. So this place that Wemmick lives in, he's built this little castle, and it has surrounded by this little moat, and it has a drawbridge, and there's this cannon and the flagpole. And it's all miniature though, like I just sort of think of it as either like maybe something you'd see in like The Hobbit, or maybe like little Lego people or something. Like it's just this like miniature sized sort of stuff. And he says that, if ever he is besieged, he'll be fine because he's well supplied with provisions. So he kind of acts as though he's, in war. It's really quite charming, actually. And then we meet his aged parent, and Wemmick is so kind to him, and this man is deaf as well, and keeps telling Pip, Wemmick keeps telling Pip, nod at him, he loves nodding, and then on page 191, it's just kind of a cute little, I'll just share a little scene with the father. So he says, well, aged parent, how am you? All right, John, all right, replied the old man. Here's Mr. Pip, aged parent, said Wemmick, and I wish you could hear his name. Nod away at him, Mr. Pip. That's what he likes. Nod away at him, if you please, like winking. And then he says, later on, Pip says, or the man, I guess the age said, he's fired, I heard him, and I nodded at the old gentleman until it is no figure of speech to declare that I absolutely could not see him. When you go like really, really fast, you can't even see anything. So anyway, it's kind of a crazy, funny thing. So then the thing that's striking Pip is how incredibly nice Wemmick is, and he can't understand it. It's just like, what is going on? So he asks him about this, and Wemmick explains it. On page 192, he says, what? Not 192. Oh, here it is, on the top of page 191. Okay. So he says, does Mr. Jaggers, no, we've never heard of it, never seen the age, never heard of him. No, the office is one thing and private life is another. When I go into the office, I leave the castle behind me. And when I come into the castle, I leave the office behind me. If it's not in any way disagreeable to you, you will oblige me by doing the same. I don't wish it professionally spoken about. And then as they're coming back into into London or Little Britain, the next day he says, our breakfast was as good as the supper at 8:30 precisely. We started for Little Britain. By degrees, Wemmick got drier and harder as we went along, and his mouth tightened into a post office again. At last, when we got to his place of business, and he pulled out his key from his coat collar, he looked as unconscious of his Walworth property as if the castle and the drawbridge and the arbour and the lake and the fountain and the aged had all been blown into space together by the last discharge of the stinger. So Wemmick is very much divided personal and private. I mean, what? Personal and work. So he's got his personal life and he's got his work life. Dual existences. What do you think of that? I mean, we often, hear the expression, he brings his work home with him as, sort of an unfortunate thing. So maybe there should be a separation between work and home. Just something to think about. I'm going to actually stop there and I'll pick up chapter 7 in a subsequent video.